Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us. And for those of you that are through the broadcast or through the phone line, thank you again for dialing in. We have a great session for you this morning, and it is through 3 of our ERGs. We'll have Pablo introduce kind of the spirit and intent and the involvement of our ERG groups in just a moment. But for those of you that are on the phone, if you could take a moment and do your safety briefing, we are going to do that here in the 7th floor auditorium. If we need to take cover, we will go down to the 6th floor to the core of the building. Please check in with one of the zone leaders. They'll have the orange hats on. Is there anyone that could volunteer to dial 911 for us in the event of an emergency? And then also anyone that's CPR or first aid certified. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. With that, I'll introduce Pablo Kozner. He is our Americas Distribution Vice President, and he's going to kick off our meeting this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Entry and exit tones
Okay,
are now
can you hear me now?
off.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon from wherever you're calling in from. I'd like to just share with you a couple of thoughts before we turn it over to the panel. The first thought is thank you for being interested and being here today. And for those of you participating online or who will be watching the webcast later, thank you very much for tuning in. This is a very important day for me personally, and I think it's an important day for the company when we can bring a topic like this openly to discuss and learn about people that are going through their fights with cancer or the caregivers that are going through it with them. I'd like to maybe share a little bit of why it's personal to me. I've grown up around cancer in one way or another all of my life. My father's an oncologist, and I used to visit him at work, his labs, where he's treated patients, both adults and children. I've seen families as they've gone through this. I've shared talks with my father about what it's like to be a doctor, about promising new treatments, about exciting things that he's seeing, and also some of the heartbreaking things that he's witnessed. I've also had and have family members that are going through this this disease, different types of diseases. But I've been on the receiving end of bad news, and I know how difficult it can be. And I've had friends that have fought it, some have lost, and some have great stories. So it's something that has affected me personally, and when you look at the very sobering statistics of cancer, it's something that will impact all of us in one way or another throughout our lifetimes. In the United States, 1 in 3 people will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lifetime. And that's a mixture of various things. People are living longer, which is a good thing, but as you live longer, then you tend to face complications towards as you get older. And so the medical industry is really challenged with this. As people are living better quality of lives and longer lives, they're also finding that disease plays a role in these lifetimes. But like I said before, it's a very exciting time in the area of cancer research because we talk about the rate of change within our business. Well, nothing could be more true in the area of scientific discovery. And people are living with cancer today and surviving cancer, and there'll be those that are diagnosed and will continue on to live a very good life, and the quality of treatment is improving. So it's a great...
All participants are now in listen-only mode.
But when you're facing this illness, it can be a very devastating event. And I think about my own personal experience. Sometimes when you're the caregiver or the partner or the family member, the news can be, or the experience can be, at times it could feel as equally as difficult as the experience of the person that's going through it, because it's very tough to see a loved one go through that experience. So it's a great session to be able to talk about it openly, to hear from people that are fighting it, have fought it next to a loved one, and for those of us at work that want to reach out and help someone to better understand what it's like to go through something like this and how you even approach a discussion, or how you offer help, or how you just listen to whatever it is a person may choose to share. It's also a very important day for me because I'm on the board of the Illinois CancerCare Foundation. Janet Barnes and some of her team are here today with us, and I appreciate you being here. And this is the idea for this panel was born from Janet, who then met with us, what was it, about four months ago now? It seems like yesterday. And we wanted to set up a session to be able to talk about a topic as important to this. I want to thank the panelists for offering to share and be here. I think it's going to make for a great discussion and a lot of learning. And I also want to thank the 3 employee resource groups that came together to help put this, to make this possible. And I'm the executive stakeholder of the Caterpillar Lambda network. And one of our mission statements, part of what we stand for, is bringing your true self or your whole self to work. I think Tim is here, who runs the organization, and I think about people that are going through this, or those that are supporting, or their caregivers for those that are going through it, and the things that they bring to work that they don't know how to share or they don't want to share, and this is a piece of who they are that they struggle at times being able to share this openly. So I think that our resource group really understands this, and I'm really proud that we came together to support this function. I also want to recognize the Women's Initiative Network, played a key role in putting this together, and the abled and disabled employees partnering together. Thank you very much for all of your work. And Dr. DeSalvio, who is here with us today, was also a key member in putting this together. So with that, thank you very much. I look forward to an exciting discussion, and I'll turn it over to Karen.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'd like the panelists to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their personal story and some of the support that they found through either coworkers or how they leveraged groups like the Illinois CancerCare to help support them through their personal stories. So with that.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for being here and allowing us this time to share. I am a 7-year survivor, breast cancer, grateful for every day. Went through mastectomy, 4 reconstruction surgeries, all the chemo, so months of that, and radiation. And still do treatment, along with my sister there. We do treatment every 6 months. Zometa is what I still do, and I'm just grateful. Grateful for the medical community here, grateful for the Illinois Cancer Center, because they're just phenomenal. Phenomenal level of medical facility and personnel. And the other piece of my story is Caterpillar. I was diagnosed through a mammogram. They told me that day, if you had missed your mammogram, you would not have lived to have another one. And so I knew it was very serious. So I'm grateful to Caterpillar that they pay for mammograms, they support that, and also supported me through that journey. I was allowed to work during that journey, which for me was very important, to not just be the cancer girl. And so, and I had tremendous leadership and support. A shout out to Tom Doolittle. I don't know if he's on the phone today. He was my leader at the time, and was just tremendous support to me, as were some of my former leaders, Mary Bell and Julie Legacy and Steve Larson, Dan Spellman. And not only were they supportive, Barb Hodel, they rallied their teams. And when I speak to survivors, I often say, you know, if you want to see the generosity and caring of people, show up with cancer. And that was That was certainly true at Caterpillar. Just had tremendous support, and I was kind of the poster child for a mammogram because I had no symptoms, no lump, nothing anyone would see. I didn't feel anything, but yet it had already been through my breast and 14 lymph nodes, which then leads to, the next level of concern. So I feel like now is my time to give back. I feel like I survived for a reason, and this is kind of my calling then to mentor others who are going through this. And also grateful to Dr. DeSalvio. We're talking about how do we start a formal mentoring program at Caterpillar. We did it ad hoc. I had some great support, but it was just people coming together. How do we organize that and do it more intentionally? And I'm grateful to be part of that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Williams, and my role here is being the spouse of a very beautiful woman who was a victim of cancer 5 years ago, and the news was very, very difficult. And my story is going to revolve around how Caterpillar culture sort of just embraced me, especially my angel to my right, who took me in and actually helped me through this personal crisis. And to relay the impact of this, I actually managed the crisis management for the company. So the first thing I realized and I understood is I couldn't manage this crisis myself. And this is how the network came and embraced me. Very powerful story, but it's a very powerful story about our culture. And I certainly want to relay that. But first, I want to introduce my wife, Teresa Kitson. I kept my maiden name.
Good morning, everyone. Tim is right. I was diagnosed 5 years ago, almost to the day in July. It was very bad news. I was like Catherine. I really had no symptoms. I felt good. I'd been very active all summer. And one day I woke up, and when I came home that night, there was a little drop of blood in my bra. And I thought, what is this? And because I have always been so healthy, it's like, well, we'll just watch this and see what happens. Next day, another little drop of blood in my bra. So I thought, okay, this doesn't seem like it's going to just go away on its own. So I went to Illinois Cancer Center. I started at I had to go to the walk-in clinic first because to get into Susan Komen for the mammogram, you can't just walk in. So I went through the walk-in clinic there at OSF on 91, and they sent me directly upstairs to Susan Komen. Started, did an ultrasound, a mammogram, and then I came back a few days later for a biopsy, and we knew it was bad. We knew it was very bad. And I came back a few more days later for the PET scan, which is kind of that's kind of the final piece of the package that tells you, okay, where is this cancer? And mine had spread. Mine had metastasized to the bone. And so the PET scan is what kind of determines your plan. And again, as Catherine said, the Cancer Foundation and the CancerCare there on 91 is just unreal. We had only lived here 2 years and had been in Nashville for 17. And when our friends and family heard, they all said, go to Northwestern, come back to Nashville, go to Vanderbilt. You can't possibly get the services you need in Peoria. And so we did a little research, and it's like, oh yes, we can. We can get the same thing that they do at Northwestern, MD Anderson, Vanderbilt, for most things. So my doctor is Dr. Lindquister. I love her to pieces. She's very direct. And so she wanted me to start chemo the next day, and I said, no, I have to kind of process this. And Tim is the one. I'm more introverted, and Tim is the one who needed to talk about it. And I just wanted to go home and sit and kind of let this sink in all weekend. And so that's how Tim, that was Thursday, and he went to work Friday, and somewhere between that Friday and Monday, I think Sid Banwart got in touch with Catherine and asked Catherine to please go down, talk to Tim Williams. His wife has just been diagnosed. See if there's anything you can do. And Catherine just helped us immensely, as did Kat, because I felt it was good for Tim because he's more of a nurse and a hoverer, and I felt it was good for him. Go to work, go to the meetings, go to dinner. Really, I'm okay. Because I was very fortunate with the chemo. I had 10 sessions of it. And of course I had, you lose all your hair and you're really, really achy, but I was very, very fortunate. I had very, very few side effects other than the fatigue, which really knocks you out. I mean, you just sit on the couch for days because it's just too much effort. But my chemo was very, very easy for me, and I'm very fortunate for that because I know it's not that way for a lot of people. And then I had a bilateral mastectomy, and then I had reconstructive surgery. And yes, I'm still taking some medication. Right now I'm having a little bit of a side effect. It's called hand and foot, where your hands and feet peel and get really pink, and it's uncomfortable, but it's not a big deal compared to what other people go through. So Catherine was a huge help to Tim. Catherine was a huge help to me. She would send me cards. And after every PET scan, and PET scans are the scary part, and I was having them about every quarter because the PET scan tells you where are you, is medicine working, really. And so my problem with that is you have a PET scan on a Tuesday, and you have to wait till that Monday, the next Monday, to get the results. So every Sunday night before a PET scan, I would just be a basket case because I just say, oh, I know it's going to be bad, it's going to be horrible. And I tried and tried and tried to get the technician in the radiology department, just give me a clue, just a little clue. Good, bad, medium, just don't make me wake up weak. And he's like, no, and he'd talk about food and groceries and cooking and stuff. It's like, okay, I get it. You can't do that professionally. And then after most of my PET scans, Catherine would also send me flowers, which was just a nice little reminder. So she was a tremendous help. Kat was a tremendous help. I've had a gazillion procedures and tests and medications, and we've never had to fight for anything. And the cancer center is very progressive. They have, we have some of the best physicians there in the country, probably. My Dr. Lee Lindquister, Dr. Mamelito, who does most of the surgeries, and then Dr. Glenn Jones, he's a plastic surgeon by trade, so he also does facelifts, but his love is reconstructive surgery for women who've had breast cancer. So we couldn't be happier with the services we've had. And as Catherine said, happy to be here, right? Happy to be here. Wasn't sure 5 years ago that I would be here. I remember reading the paper, and they were talking about Red Robin, that Red Robin was coming to East Peoria, and I remember thinking, I hope I live long enough to go to Red Robin, because it was one of our favorite. We used to live in Idaho years and years ago when we were first married, and it was one of my favorite restaurants and a fun restaurant, and I just thought, I hope I can make it to Red Robin. So I made that milestone, and I think that helps too, to have a milestone, to have something you're looking forward to. And we don't have children, so we didn't have that, but I've heard other people say, I had to see my child go to kindergarten. I had to see my child graduate. And so it's good attitude. It's not all medicine, and that was hard for me to understand at first, because I thought, no, it's all medicine and science. I really am out of control of this. I just am kind of along for the ride, and I'll do whatever the doctors say. But attitude and support really, really helps. It's amazing. And it took me a couple months to realize that, but that's a huge part, I think, of recovery or just getting through it. So that's me. That's my story so far.
Thank you, Teresa. My name's Steve Seitz. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer last year, April timeframe. The process that I went through originated in early 2000. My brother called me on the phone and told me that he had prostate cancer. So my treatment actually started at that point in time, and that was the preventive treatment of annually getting checked. So that was the process that I was going through, not knowing our family has 4 boys, 1 sister, and nobody else had any signs of cancer in the family, but we're going through that practice, so everybody was getting their annual treatments. And then I'm in my sixth year, and I go to my local doctor here, Dr. Whitford, and I went from 0 PSA to 4.75, which 4 is the limit of where you have concern. So he immediately recommended me to go over to, I was with Methodist, so we went over to Dr. Kenny and he did a biopsy, and I had two, the right quadrants, they quadrant the prostate, and I had 20% of the two right quadrants. So very, very early detection. So he was almost joyous in giving me my diagnosis, which that, I think Teresa is correct. The attitude is amazing because it had a huge, powerful effect on me in the fact that I was with the right person. He immediately said, you're a perfect candidate for high-dose brachyradiation treatment. So he sent me to Dr. McGee at the Gamma Knife at OSF, and he was phenomenal. Sat down with him. He is a very technical doctor. The new study for high-dose brachyradiation treatment came out the month prior. We broke open the book and basically went through the results. And the treatment has gone from about a 60% outlook at 5 years to 90% clear in 10 years. So phenomenal treatment now. Very, very successful. I was able to, normally you do the high-dose brachyradiation treatment 2 days into the hospital. You have that treatment, and then you have the external radiation, 25 treatments following that. But for scheduling it, we just flipped it around. So I think that was another key point in my success, was I was able to start immediately. So I had this huge obstacle that has been placed on me, but I have very confident doctors. He basically came out and told me, this is not what will bring you to your demise. He said, it'll be something else. I will definitely cure you of your cancer. So those were very positive words. That helped support me to be able to support my family. Stephanie was a huge piece in my life. My wife, Stephanie, and her support, and then my kids, sharing it with them. Very difficult. I have 3 children. Chelsea, Scott, and Kathy are twins, and they just graduated from high school, another milestone that I was looking for. And I, in March, just received my clear status, so my PSA came back less than 1. So I'm clear for my cancer, and it is a joyous time for me. The unfortunate fact, it isn't like that for everybody. I'm going in for my treatments. I'm sitting with many, many people that are getting treatment. I think Mr. Kozar definitely said the key point there. There are many people that have the cancer, and it is systemic through the ages. I'm not the only one that's as young as I am that goes through this. There are many, many people, and that is almost a community all in itself, almost instant friendship there, meeting the people, them seeing you for your treatments. We can become somewhat bonded, and that is very comforting also, because they definitely know the exact place that you're at and what you're going through. So, my story, I think the key is the pre-screenings, make sure that you get them. Be aware and understand exactly what your results are, and be ensure you know your history so that you can diagnose it early. And I've had a very successful treatment, and my story is continuing. I'll continue to do my monitoring and getting my PSAs, but right now I'm cancer free, and I'm glad for that. I think one other piece, the ability of telling my leadership at Caterpillar. Tim is my director, and the acceptance of what I was going through, the understanding of what I was going through, the caveat of freedom that they gave me to be able to coordinate my appointments, and then the Gamma Knife, they moved me to early appointments in the morning. I was able to do all of my treatments before I came to work. I didn't have to miss any work. It made it comfortable for me, I think, because it was a time where I don't know that I was open to a lot of exposure from anybody to try and help me. I think that's a key point that Teresa mentioned with Tim, is to share that and get open with that as quickly as you can, because you can't do it by yourself, and that is a key piece, and I appreciate that.
Thank you all so much for sharing those very powerful stories. We do have a few prepared questions, but we do want to open it up for questions to the audience. If you're also joining us through WebEx, you can send a question through there, and we'll be happy to relay that question to either the full panel, or if you have a question maybe directed at one of the panelists, we can do that as well. The first question that we would start with is kind of along the lines of where Steve ended. Why are some people more open about sharing their diagnosis than others?
I was coerced into sharing. When I went in and talked to Tom Doolittle, I said, here's the deal, I got cancer, it's bad, and I'm not telling anybody. And he said, okay. He's a counselor, remember, he's a psychologist and a very good one. And I said, I'm old enough, I'm going to go do this surgery. People are going to think I had a hysterectomy. I want you to spread that around, and then I'll come back and go to work. And God bless Tom Doolittle, who let me ramble for a little bit and then went, you're missing the point here. And I said, I'm dying. I don't know what the point is. I got a short span here. They've already told me that. And he said, the point is you have been a mentor in the business world your entire career. And the good Lord is giving you a tremendous opportunity right now to mentor others. And it begins by being able to tell this story and to share. And I firmly believe then he also got Mary Bell and Julie Legacy and a few other folks in the circle, because they started calling me and saying, we know what's going on. You need to mentor others. And so we want you to tell this story. We want you to be open with people because you have a calling here that you may not have realized. And that whole business mentoring, that was just a prep. And so anyway, that was, again, tremendous support from Caterpillar to really work with me. Tom Doolittle went with me to tell my staff. I don't know if any of you have been through Lou Tice training. Anybody been through that? Investment in Excellence? Yes. And, Miss Lindsay Burkle here was another great support, all of my tractors team. But they also said, remember the Lou Tice training. Remember this. Set that vision. And we went right down the Lou Tice path. My husband and I set a vision for, what's it going to look like on the other side of this. And we said, when we went in for the diagnosis, we pretty much knew it was not going to be good. And when the doctors told us, we looked at each other and said, we have a vision. We're going to come through this stronger and healthier than we are today. We're going to learn from other smart people who have done this well and with a positive attitude. And then we're going to help others do the same. And they all smiled and said, let's not worry about the diagnosis. You're going to make it.
I don't think we've talked about this, Catherine, but when Teresa got her diagnosis, I ran straight into Kim Howard's office and said, I need some help. I'm not sure what that help's going to mean, but I need to talk to you about it. She was very, very kind and consoling, but she was also telling me that, okay, you are the support mechanism here. You're going to have to understand that. And I really didn't understand that to the depth I do now. But obviously, Kim called Sid Bandworth, who was the VP of HSD at the time. Sid called Catherine. And at the same time, I noticed on Cat at Work, there was a film vignette of Catherine and the discussion about her surviving. So that next day, I called Catherine and arranged to have coffee down in 2C, the cafeteria here in the building. And I still have, I think, 6 or 7 3x5 cards of the conversation Catherine and I have. They're all dog-eared. They're in the top of my desk drawer, and they probably will remain there forever. Because what she did, the gift Catherine gave me was she was very, very direct with me, and that was important, and very genuine. As a matter of fact, when I was sitting across from her, I thought to myself, my gosh, she'd make a great security investigator. But what Catherine told me, and what I looked at the notes last night 6 or 7 times through it, you are the support. It's all about Teresa. And then here's what you're going to go through. There'll be bandages. There's going to be long nights. There's going to be difficulty. She's not going to feel like doing a lot of different things. It's all about Teresa. All throughout the notes. So she put me in my role, which Teresa wanted, but wasn't able to articulate too much except for with my family. And that was, keep everyone at the door. You are the gatekeeper. I need time. So, again, those notes were just tremendous to help me. And then the Cancer Center gave me a couple books to read, how to as a spouse or significant other, how do you provide support? And I poured through those books and try to bring back some of my old counseling courses and all the rest to know how to handle that. And it's difficult. It's difficult because I haven't always said the right thing. I've said the wrong thing at the wrong time. And you're going through these awful treatments, and sometimes things get a bit emotional, but Catherine told me, you've got to soak it up. You've got to stand up, and you have to be that pillar. And that was very, very good advice, because I did make mistakes. But with that said, that was the greatest gift I could receive, is to have someone who was direct and very genuine in giving me advice. Now, it's nice to get kindness as well, but I needed that more than anything else. Tim, get focused. Here's what you're in for, etc. Dr. DeSilvio has been a godsend as well, and a friend. And again, those are the attributes of the Caterpillar culture. So initially, Teresa didn't want me to tell anyone about her diagnosis. And that was very, very difficult for me, but that was my role. So, I didn't have that opportunity at first to tell all of my team, hey, I've got this issue we're dealing with. But eventually, she felt more comfortable with that. We were able to tell our team, and then eventually my family. And my family are hoverers. And it might take a few of you a few minutes to process this who know me professionally here at Caterpillar, but my family's the emotional side of the house, as am I. So that's when the rest of the team gathered around and said, what can we do to help? And again, that's an attribute at Caterpillar I've always known or noticed, and that is when someone raises their hand and says, I need help, people stop. Most people stop and say, okay, I've got to pay attention, I've got to listen. And it's difficult trying to help somebody when they're in a situation like this. Sometimes it's awkward to find the right words and all the rest, but just simply saying, hey, we're with you, how's Teresa doing, means volumes. So, once we were able to get the word out, it just was a really good and very comforting feeling to be a leader and have your team behind you and understand what you're going through. Just tremendous.
I was like Catherine. I was going to not tell anybody that I had cancer. And I even asked the nurse at the Cancer Center, I said, can you do that? Can I fool people? And she said, some people have. She said, if that's what you want to do, she said, but I would, advise you to talk to people. But that was my plan. It's like, nope, I'm going to sit home. I'll do everything the doctors say. I'll go to chemo, everything. I don't want everybody, and especially Tim's family, to come to Peoria and hover and go, are you okay? Are you hungry? Are you hot? Do you feel sick? Because I'm not like that. If I don't feel good, I'd rather be, I guess I'm like a wounded animal. I'd rather be by myself. I'll tell you if I'm hungry, I'll tell you if I'm thirsty, but just kind of back off. And the second whammy is that when I started chemo, I also went into like instant menopause. So it's like, okay, it kind of gave me free rein to just, kind of say whatever I wanted. And like Catherine said, she didn't want to be the cancer girl, and that's how I felt. It's like, I don't want to be the cancer girl. And to this day, I still feel like I'm the cancer girl because people, like I told some folks in a meeting once, my landscaper came up to me and said, and I'd only known you maybe 6 months. He said, how are you doing? You doing okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. He said, well, I talked to Dr. Wolfcool, and he told me your story. And Dr. Wolfcool is my veterinarian. I said, okay, the veterinarian's telling the landscaper. So I'm just like, what was I thinking, trying to keep this a secret? But it is, I'm fine with it now. It's still hard when people will say, well, how's Teresa doing? And is she okay? Or sometimes people, they want to help, and their heart's in the right place, and it annoys me because I feel like, leave me alone. I don't want to be the cancer girl. Cancer's not who I am. You know, I'm functioning. I'm fine. But it is. It's very helpful, and especially for Tim, because Tim needed to talk about it. I did not at that point because I've got a master's in clinical psych, so I'm thinking I can do this. I'm in my head. I can do this by myself. I don't need all this help. But you really do. And then what happened to me that showed me that, yeah, you really do need help. Because the other thing I was taking, you don't intend to do it, but it's like, okay, here he is. I know he's not going to leave. I can say and do anything, and he's going to stand there and suck it up and come back in half an hour and say, are you hungry, are you thirsty, or anything. So I had to be careful not to be just grouchy just because I was sick, just because I had the right to kind of be grouchy and feel sorry for myself. So I had to be careful not to take advantage of that because I knew there was nothing I could say or do that would make him walk out on me. So I had to be careful. But then I had another little experience. Went to TJ Maxx. I wasn't that sick. Went to TJ Maxx, and I'm walking around. I'm just starting to lose my hair. We're still wearing a ball cap. And there's this woman, and she kind of looks like me. She's dressed like me. She's got real short, dark hair. And she kind of keeps looking at me, and it's like, I'm thinking, yeah, I've got cancer. Okay, lady, I've got cancer. And I'm talking to the woman at the counter, and I said, no, what about hats? When are you going to get winter hats in? Because, again, that was my plan. I wasn't going to do the wig thing. And she was telling me about winter hats and whatever. And finally, this woman walks over to me with her cart and her little buzz cut. And she says, do you have cancer? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, well, I overheard the conversation. And she said, I have cancer too. She said, I'm just getting over it. I've just finished my chemo. My hair's just starting to come in. She said, can I help you? And it was like, well, I don't know. I'm really okay. And she said, well, let me help you. She said, I heard you talking about hats. And she said, I never did hats. She said, I did a wig. And she said, I did scarves. She said, could I come to your home and show you how to do scarves? Because I said, I don't know how to do the pretty wrap around with the scarf. Next day, well, first, then before that, after I agreed to let the strange woman come to my house and do scarves on my head, we kind of introduced ourselves. And it's one of those things that just gives you goosebumps. And I'm Catholic, so I believe in the guardian angel thing. I've really bought into that idea all my life. And we started to introduce ourselves, and it's like, well, her name's Teresa. My name's Teresa. Her cancer was in her right breast. My cancer was in my right breast. We're both Irish Catholic. We're a year apart in age, and it's like, this is just weird. This is just weird. But she became my girlfriend because you need, not that you don't need your spouse or your companion, but you need a girlfriend just to say and to kind of get on the phone and say, you won't believe what Tim did today, or I don't feel very good, or can I bring you some soup today? And so that was, at that point then it's like I became open and I talked about it. And in fact, as we were getting ready to start this meeting, someone asked us, are there any questions or anything off limits? And it's like, no. After you've been through this, we're not embarrassed about anything. You can ask us anything, tell us anything if you have any questions. But so that helped me, and that was probably 2 months into my chemotherapy. So it's like then I started to open up. And it's just like everybody knows I have cancer now. And that's fine. And they ask about Tim. And Tim is, always give people update. But he still in many ways is the gatekeeper because I don't want to be that cancer girl where that's all people talk about when they call me or text me. So Tim still sometimes will kind of, protect me from those things because I just said early on I had not a blow up, but a little issue with his sister-in-law because Tim had put the word out then early on, just contact Tim. Text me, call me, but Teresa doesn't really want to talk right now. And so I got up one Monday morning, about 2 months into the chemo, and I opened my laptop, and it's from my sister-in-law, and she says, "Don't worry, Teresa, I'll never bother you again." And so I was like, whoa. So I closed the laptop, and I called Tim, and I said, "You need to handle this." I said, "I don't know what did you say to her?" And he said, "Nothing." He said, "That's just her reaction." He said, "She wanted to help, and she feels left out." But, you know, Catherine's right, Tim's right, it is all about me. It's how do I want to handle this? It impacts family and friends, but it's like, how do I want to handle this? And people let me do that, and I feel very comfortable with that. And it helped. It helped. I did everything the doctors have asked me to do, but other things like go to group or something, I don't want to go to a group for support. I don't want to, you know, there's different things I don't want to do because I know me pretty well. And so it just, when I got to the point where it was okay to talk about it, then that was fine. And now it's like, yeah, I know wherever I go, somebody's going to say, "How are you? When's your next PET scan?" And that's fine. Because people care, and that's very important. People care, especially for Tim. I think it helps Tim that everybody. I mean, he's gotten notes and emails from like men he's worked with on like these big committees, national committees on some of the organizations he belongs to, and they'll say, "We've got Teresa on our prayer list." And Dan Donahue, who many of you probably know, he went to Fatima, and he brought me back holy water. And he was somewhere in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, and there's sacred ground there, and he brought me a little vial of sacred ground. And it's just all those little things that you know, now I like it. I enjoy it, and it doesn't make me feel, I'm not the cancer girl. So, but it took me a while to get there. And the thing that TJ Maxx, Terry Baldy is her name, she and I still talk about, like, that is just so weird. That is just so weird. But it helped us. It helped us both.
The day my diagnosis came, it was shocking. Even though I knew my brother had been diagnosed, I should have been prepared. I was doing my pre-screenings, but it just, you walk into the doctor, you think you're just doing the regular routine and everything's going to come back fine, and it doesn't, and it is definitely a surprise. With that, retired military, 22 years, all I'm going to do is get my team together and we're going to attack it. So I got my team of doctors and set a plan and put that in play as quickly as I could. I think the key to my, very similar to Teresa, I wanted to be able to have my plan put together the way I wanted to do it, and then I'll share what that is, and I don't have any issue with that. The support of someone helping me build my plan, I think, was not where I could be at that point in time. Stephanie knows me very well, so she knew that's how it was going to go. So pretty much set up with my doctors, and that plan came together so quickly, and then the opportunity to switch the daily radiation treatments early made me feel like I was doing something immediately. So I was attacking that cancer right away. I think if I would have had to wait, and it would have been almost 40 days, those would have been some long 40 days and 40 nights, wondering, you know, when am I going to get started on this huge issue in my life. So I was able to do that very quickly. It almost became routine after as little as a week. And I was just going to my treatments. They were so early in the morning, go to work, come home. It didn't affect my kids as much. They would occasionally come around and say, you know, what's going on, and we would kind of give a family update. My brother would text me, you know, once a week and say, how's everything going? And he's also retired military, so a little matter of fact, and that it's just a process. We'll go through this and it'll be over. And so that support is what I kind of had it planned, and so it was very effective. Tim, the leadership team, Fred Albert, very, very, very understanding, immediately giving me any ability to do what I needed to do, and I think that helped me, and I appreciate the time that you gave me to do that. And then supportive on top of that in the appropriate way. They would come and just occasionally ask me, is there anything that you need, or is there something that we can do to help you? How are you doing? And I felt very rewarded by that, and I again thank you for allowing me to be able to run my plan my way. And that might not be the way that everybody operates or they want their treatment to go, but I think Teresa hit on the key there is understand who has the cancer and understand what they want and help support their plan. And I think that's the best route to support someone in a situation like this. Caterpillar is phenomenal in all aspects of support. I am totally appreciative of everything that Caterpillar does. All aspects, leadership, my companions, peers, very understanding and very supportive, and I appreciate that. Friends would contact me. A lot of Facebooking ended up happening, and I don't use Facebook a lot, so that was another piece that is kind of out of your control, and that story gets to where it needs to be is probably quicker than you'd like it to. But in the end result, things went very, very successful for me. I think the confidence in my doctors and their plan for me just gave me that confidence that I was going to be able to challenge this and beat it. So I think those are all important aspects, and this forum here, if there's any support that I can provide to anyone, I would do that in a heartbeat, and I thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
That's great. We do have a whole list of prepared questions, but it's been a pretty inspirational first 50 minutes, so thank you to the panelists. Are there any questions from those of you in the room? Let us run a microphone back. And then for those of you on the phone, the lines are muted at the moment, so if you have a question, you can enter that through WebEx at this point, but we do have a question in the back of the room.
My question is more towards the support, so it's basically to Tim. Now, no doubt it is all about Teresa to take care of her, but for you, how did you handle it? I mean, it will be suddenly overwhelming, and what kind of a support you approached for your own sanity?
Some might question if it's still intact.
But
But
let me just say one thing. We have a man cave at our house. That's huge. That really, huge. That really helps.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, because that's a very sensitive question, and I do deeply appreciate that. It took a lot for me to take that step, but Catherine really put me on that trajectory, because she said you need to find your own support. But, Teresa, it's all about Teresa, but find your own support, and here are some suggestions about how to go to do that. Dr. Silvio has been great, because we've talked about it. We've talked about the potential outcomes and what can happen and what is it like to be with someone who's going through these progressive types of therapies, and what might you see and what you need to be careful about. So having those discussions was very helpful. When Teresa gave me permission to talk to my team, I had those conversations with team members. One of my leadership team members' wife passed away from ovarian cancer last year, and she was in for a 2-year fight with it. The employee, my employee, constantly says if she didn't lose, she won, because she lived much longer than what she was diagnosed to do. So we talk often, and those are difficult conversations to have, especially since his wound is still healing, if I can use that analogy, and will be healing for a long, long time. But it's a matter of being able to be comfortable with compassion in the workplace. It sounds strange coming from the person who manages security for the company. I realize that, but that makes you vulnerable, and that increases trust. And if you can feel vulnerable and you can have that trust, that's how I'm getting through this. Although I'd have to tell everybody, make it very clear, my family hasn't made it past the Illinois border yet. They're all Buckeyes, so they're a little hesitant to come here anyway. But that's an excellent question. We all have to find our own path. That was Catherine's admonition to me earlier. You're going to have to find your own path. You're going to have to find your own support. There's one other thing that happened that was very touching. Diane Oberhelman sent me a copy of her book, And the title of the book is Cancer, Here's How You Can Help Me to Cope and Survive. And that's another one of those books in my library that's dog-eared with a number of times I've gone through. Fantastic, great amount of advice that really fell in line with what Catherine's counseling with me did. And those things really were very, very, very helpful. You can't do it by yourself. And, I found myself going through all 4 stages of crisis, the Helen Kubler-Ross thing, with denial and anger and all the rest of that. And I'm not linear. I'm not an engineer. I kind of bounce between them. I think it's really most of us do. And I have friends who have recognized that and were able to help counsel me through those periods. And having other spouses or other friends whose spouses are going through the therapy, we could talk and laugh about, here's the wrong thing I said. Because Teresa needed that catharsis to be able to, and it's easier to pick on a loved one than it is anyone else. And if you understand that, you could just take a deep breath and you can get through it. Also, the people at the Cancer Center, there was not one person that I couldn't go to and say, what is this about? What is this Zometa? What do these drugs do? What are the effects of the drugs that I need to watch for? And they were all fantastic. So the Komen Center, just great all the way down the line. Because when Teresa got her diagnosis, I think the one doctor, I think it was Dr. Mamelito, thought that maybe she was going to bring in the paddles to revive me, because I really took it very, very hard. But it's all of those networks and all of those things that helped, even a little bit to a large bit, help me keep centered. And when I feel I'm drifting out of center or I'm having difficulties, I'm heading to Catherine, I'm heading to the network. Steve and I talk about this as well, and those are the things that we try to share very, very openly. But again, I want to emphasize, because I have history with other cultures and other companies, the support here is phenomenal from everyone when you say, I need help. So now I'm on the trajectory of helping people, and there's a lot of things I'm trying to do to reach out. That is very comforting for me as well. It's therapeutic. And many people don't know, I don't know how many people are dependent on and have really survived much of this with enormous help from Catherine. So really, there is that duty to try to help, and by doing so, it really helps me. So feel good about that. But yeah.
Kim, are there any questions from WebEx before we take another question in the room? Okay, hold on just a second.
This is a question for the entire panel. Were you surprised by the number of people that approached you at work or outside of work that said they were either survivors or in treatment?
And for the panelists, just make sure sometimes we're having trouble with that handheld mic, so if you can hold it as close to your chin as possible, that'd be great.
This is Catherine. Yes, I was just overwhelmed by the outpouring of generosity and just the positivity from different people, particularly at work, that came to me, that emailed me. I also had a gatekeeper. Jan Arnold was our gatekeeper, and she communicated with folks for us, and she was remarkable as well. So people would come to her, they would respond to those emails, and she would be the gatekeeper. And yes, there were other survivors that would come to me as well and helped with that support.
I was absolutely stunned as to the number of colleagues here at Caterpillar who were victims of breast cancer, diagnosed with breast cancer. And as I started doing a lot of research on it, I was embarrassed by the fact that I didn't realize how prevalent and how dangerous this is. And it's caused me to wake up to a lot of different issues in the workplace that I need to be more sensitive to, and to also watch for the signs of people who aren't themselves. And I tend to try to know my people very well. And when I see behavior or problems, surfacing, I'm a lot more sensitive now about trying to understand what that context is, and to pay attention to that. So, again, I'm very, very surprised at how prevalent cancer, and especially breast cancer, is.
I'd have to agree with Tim. I was amazed at the people that come and say, I've been in recovery for 5 years, or my mother just died, or we have this in our family. And in fact, my friend and I, we try not to be morbid about it, but it's like, okay, here's another one. Like my friend Terry, her niece, who's 32 years old, diagnosed with breast cancer, just had her second baby, had to go under chemotherapy, radiation, reconstruction. She asked the doctor if they were planning on having a third baby later on, and the doctor said, no, the cancer treatment will not really allow you to become pregnant again. So my friend Terry and I, and again, not trying to be morbid, but it's like, oh, don't tell me who else has cancer now. It's just like a virus. And even in Tim's office, just your office here in town, there must be 5 people, and then including me, who have either prostate cancer, John Stafford's wife had ovarian cancer, and then me with breast cancer. John Shevchuk had colon cancer. And the thing about that is, that made me feel good about that, is I think we were supportive to them because they didn't know, it was a shock. Like you kind of go in, expecting it's going to be a piece of cake, I got to go back to work, and the doctor says, oh no, you have cancer. And John's wife came up to me at some point and she said, Teresa, you made me have a mammogram. She said, I've been avoiding mammograms for 5 or 6 years. And she said, when I heard about you, I went. And she said, I'm fine. But she said, you motivated me to do that. So yeah, it's almost like a flu virus. It's just out there. It's widespread. When I'm at the cancer center for my Zometa, I'll be in the treatment room where people are getting chemo, and there are very elderly people in wheelchairs. There are kids who look like they're 24, 25 years old. It's just like a virus. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I just think there's something in the environment, or something. We're doing something that so many people have so many different types of cancer, and so many young people are getting it. But yes, it was a kind of an eye-opener for me, because in my mind, cancer was like, oh, when I'm 70 or 80, I'll worry about cancer. That's not anything prevalent now I need to worry about. But no, you need to be concerned and get checked and stay healthy and see your doctors, because it's out there. It's like a bug.
I think the first place that of course we went to was my immediate family. All of my brothers got together and we put our hands into the center and we said, okay, if everybody's getting checked, right? And my brother Pete was kind of slow in putting his hand in, and we said, you need to go get checked. So that is probably, the close piece, close knit right away. You take care of your own, and then it goes outside of that. I'm retired military. I use the military network, so that goes out very quickly. With my age, that it can happen at any time. So you need to be using the pre-screenings. I think it's very, very important. So a lot of people reach out for that because they have questions. My colleagues, many colleagues would come up to me and say, why did you pre-screen? How did you get to that point? I should be doing that. I'm not doing that. What made you do that? And I said, I had a history, so thank goodness my brother was diagnosed so young so that I was able to get on that pre-screening. I think Teresa hit it. I think everyone's hit it. It is I know that I should be doing it, but it's not going to happen to me. I think is a stigmatism we have to get over, and you have to take the time to take care of yourself and get ahead of it. So the pre-screening is very, very important. I'm a fan of it. I think everybody should be participative in that, and anybody that you can convince to do that, I think it's the right thing to do. There's a lot of discussion with the PSA and how it's used and the value of it, but in my case, the value of it is, I think, life-saving. So if I had no symptoms of any kind, I was in, pillar of health. I didn't think there was anything wrong, so I would have not been getting screened had I not had that history. So that's probably the most important piece. A lot of people will come to me on the other side of the treatment, how I decided what treatment to go with. The confidence of my doctors put me into a window of my age and that treatment is the most effective treatment for me. I think selecting your doctor and understanding and having that confidence is vitally important. And secondly, there are other treatments. The robotic treatment is one that's popular. My brother actually did that. We had extensive discussion with that, and he gave me his side and his conditions. He was in a different situation than I. His was later stage, so it's important to understand exactly where you are and to understand what's the best. I rest the confidence of my doctors, so they won my confidence, and so I stayed with that. So I'm totally comfortable with that. I think that's important also, that you're comfortable with your plan. If you don't believe in what you're doing, it's more difficult to keep that happy and good attitude and positive outcome. So.
I have a question. What changes have you made, like, going forward? I've read articles about foods, and a lot of people are eating organic now, and look at your plastic, like pop bottles and stuff, all this BPA free. Are you concerned with any of that, and have you made changes there? Mostly like your foods and what you eat now.
I'm a Weight Watchers gal, have been for 10 years, and as I was going through treatment, I asked a lot of those things, and every doctor that I worked with said, stay with Weight Watchers. Do what you're doing. It's healthy. Kugler was my first oncologist, and now I'm with Teresa at Lee Linquister. He gave me some other good counsel, because I said, I'm a big water drinker. Should I not drink water? Should I not have plastic? Should I only do organic? Should I, And he said, you can drive yourself crazy looking for cancer. And he said, so you can decide right now, are you going to look for cancer for the rest of your life? Or are you going to live your life and let cancer be behind you? And so I do healthy eating, fresh fruits and vegetables and all the Weight Watcher program and water and exercise. The only one change I have made, and both doctors recommended this, was to do more weight training. And some of that's my age, but some of it was also because of what the drugs do to your bones. And so those things were specific to the cancer treatment ongoing, but otherwise just the healthy eating and exercise.
I'm joining Weight Watchers as soon as this meeting's over. For other reasons.
We always were pretty healthy eaters, I thought, and I think we still are. But I have gotten more aware of really washing the fruit and having a lot of fruit. We don't do the Cheetos as a treat or the potato chips as a treat. And I think that's just too for general health, because we're old and we have to watch things. It's not just the cancer, it's, your heart and cholesterol and all this. And I asked Dr. Lee Linquister, because we're not vegetarians, we're not vegans, but we're kind of close to vegetarian. We love a good steak and chili, but we don't have meat. We may go 2 or 3 weeks not having meat. And I asked her, I said, should I give up meat as, will that help me if I give up meat? And she said, you can. She said, you can give it up for ethical or moral reasons. She said, you'll still need a protein. But she said, everything you're trying to avoid in the meat is already in you. Everything you're trying to avoid in the foods and the drinks and the air is already in you. So don't do it for the cancer. Just, as Catherine said, a very healthy diet. Watch what you eat. Watch your weight. And the bones, because the medicine made our bones thinner, so now we have to be careful with that. But I think that's most of the changes we've made. We probably have added a lot more. Dr. Lindquist said the redder, the better. So a lot of raspberries, a lot of red peppers, a lot of fresh fruit, and then of course the thing that I'm really concerned about is the apples. I've heard that apples have the most pesticide of any fruit or vegetable. So I do buy organic apples. But everything else is probably not organic. But we do try to be very healthy and watch our weight, but not, as Catherine's doctor said, not make it just the focus of, is this going to cause cancer? If I go to Red Robin, will that cause cancer? What should I do? It's like, live. You've got to live, too, because there's a lot of the chemicals and whatever are already in us. They're in the soil. So, and, we love to eat, so we don't penalize ourselves. I don't feel we're penalizing ourselves at all.
I think for me, it would be the impact on my children and what they see, their thoughts. They've asked a lot of questions, and I just give them the advice to basically live that healthy life. Watch what you eat. Make sure that you have a balanced diet. Go to the doctor. Get your checkups in all general health, not just in screening for cancer or for other disease. I think that those are the important things. Take everything in moderation. You don't need to go overboard, but definitely watch and live that healthy lifestyle. I think Caterpillar's online with that. We have great programs to assist us in doing all of that, coaching, many things that Dr. Salvio's group has put together that give us that guidance to live that better life, and a healthier life gives you that ability to have a strong family, a great work relationship, and with your colleagues, and a long life, hopefully. So that's my motto, is everything in moderation.
Okay, the next one from online, and this person apologizes for being blunt up front, but says, it's very good to hear of all the support given by Caterpillar and the Caterpillar family, but did you run into any negative experiences?
You always do, Mary Bell used to say, there's going to be a few clunkers. And, I kind of always remember that. And a lot of them would happen more to my children or my husband. I remember Scott had someone come up to him in Target and say, I heard Catherine's got cancer and she's dying. And he went, well, hi, Maureen. Good to see you, too. We don't believe she's dying. We believe, X and X. I would have people come up to me periodically and say, those kinds of things. Did they tell you how long you have to live? And I'd say, well, I'm here today. Here I am. So let's get focused on today. People will still say to me, how long are you going to be in treatment? And I say, well, just till we find a cure. So some of that is same thing, working with my husband, working with our children. I have a little bit of a media background, so scripted statements is what we talked about. How do you respond to some of these things? Because you're going to have people that come up to you and say awkward things. So how do we kind of block and bridge? How do we go to get to our message out? How do you keep your mind on that positive? And as Tim and Teresa said, people don't intend to be hurtful, but sometimes the most hurtful people can be your family and, family and friends, and they don't intend to be, but it happens. And so another thing that we talk a lot about with our family, and also as I mentor survivors, and one of the topics I speak to survivors about is forgiveness. And that usually catches people off guard. They're like, well, you're the one dying. Why are you forgiving people? And I say, well, these are the things that happen. People are going to say unkind things. They don't intend to. They're going to do unkind things. Like Teresa said, I'll never talk to you again. Well, okay. So understanding, like Tim said, understanding their emotions, where they're coming from, what they're dealing with. They're scared. It's awkward for them. They don't know what to say. Understanding that, forgiving that, and helping them, come to a better place.
In terms of Caterpillar, we didn't run into any problems. Billing, issues like that went very, very smoothly, and sometimes that can be, a nightmare when you're dealing with the medical systems and whatnot. But from Caterpillar through to the Cancer Center to OSF, I don't recall any problems like that at all, and it's been very, very smooth. Now, back to my family. But I would say that, people are scared sometimes when they're asking the question. They're scared for the response. How's Teresa doing? And they're looking for good news to come back. They're also scared about our own mortality, and will I have to deal with this sometime in my life? So I recognize those are parts of that, and I try to be very, very sensitive to that when people chat with me on that. But again, I can't say enough about the things in our culture that we need to preserve as Caterpillar gets more successful and larger. And that is this ability to say, I need help and I need to talk. Or watching someone who is not behaving in a fashion that you're accustomed to. I'm not sure what normal behavior is, especially when I talk about my family. But if you notice those changes, that's when you as a supervisor have a responsibility. We as colleagues have a responsibility to reach out and say, hey, how can I help? But in terms of our experience through this with Caterpillar, we will always cherish and always appreciate the family the Caterpillar has given us, since I got to keep my family in Ohio. So it's worked out very, very well.
My experience with Caterpillar people, again, have been very supportive. They ask about me. They say they've got me on their prayer list. Very helpful. And one thing that really used to break my heart is when I was first diagnosed 5 years ago, I would call, and I don't call Tim a lot at work because I know he's busy, but occasionally I would call about something. And his assistant at that time was Tracy Cook, and Tracy is so sweet. And every time I would call, she'd burst into tears. And then she would say, is this an emergency? And I'd say, no, I just want to ask you about dinner. It's really, we're fine. But that was like, I wanted to go, Tracy, it's okay. You don't have to cry. I'm okay. Tim's okay. It's just about dinner. And then things that offended me. One was, of course, my husband. I'm not sure if this was, I don't know if this was the chemo or the menopause, but we had some friends come over. A friend brought his mother over, elderly mother over, and she was sitting in the car. They were ready to leave, and I was leaning in the car talking to her, and behind me was Tim and it was Bill Muir, I think. Bill Muir was in town, and they were whispering about me, and they were saying, do you think she's going to be okay? And Tim said, well, she's having a PET scan, so cross your fingers. And that really made me mad. It's like, hey, I'm here. I'm not deaf. I'm not that fragile. I'm in the room. Say it. Say it out loud. Do not whisper behind my back, because that really annoyed me. And then the other thing, and again, and this was just a friend did this, and it was just one of those things where you see somebody and you're shocked, and the first thing comes out of your mouth, and she said, oh, you've lost so much weight. And that was like, I know. I look like death rolled over. And I had on a white, because it was winter, a white snow cap. And we decided not to wear white snow caps because it also makes you look like you just had brain surgery. So then people are like, oh, she's got cancer and brain surgery. But that kind of, it's like, I know I look too thin. I know I'm pale. I know I don't have any eyelashes. And I know she didn't mean any harm by it. But it kind of shocked her. And I, as Catherine said, I certainly forgive her for it. But it was kind of annoying too. At the time it was annoying, but I forgive her for it. Because she was concerned. Because she looked at me and she could tell, you look kind of ill. So.
For me, I have to say, with Caterpillar, respectful. Everybody that has approached me very respectfully, they would ask me, if I would mind speaking or talking about my cancer, and then I'd say, it's fine, it's open book, whatever you want to know. And so then I would get some questions that were pretty direct. But, be prepared. That is the fear. Everybody has that fear, and they want to deal with it. So I think that's what you have to understand and try and support that. So I know people probably had to do that for me when I was asking my questions. So I have that consideration for them. I think Tim hit earlier the sensitivity or the awareness of the sensitivity of situations in people's lives and how it affects people it's like an epiphany for me. A whole lot more. There's a nicer, kinder Steve out there, and it's like, where have I been? So that's probably a good thing.
Unfortunately for my family, we've had cancer hit several members of our family, and as a result of that, we've been trying to encourage the generation before us to do more proactive screening. And I don't know if some of it is just kind of misconception about, well, if I don't go to the doctor, then I won't have it, right? Yeah. Or fear because as they're getting older in age, faced with their own mortality anyway. Do you have any recommendations on how we can respectfully encourage that generation to really do some more pre-screening, particularly in the areas where we've seen family members suffer from?
I've seen that too with my parents a little bit. I guess all I can say is to just encourage them, and that, I'm here to support you, and isn't it better to know? And so by avoiding it, I understand it's scary, and we've had some of those conversations. What scares you most? And what are you afraid of? And because I was a survivor, I could talk about some of those things too. Do you ever go to sleep and you're afraid to go to sleep because you think you won't wake up? Mm-hmm. Me too. I remember doing that. Were you ever on, when you've got a feeding tube and, you've got the morphine going? Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, if this is my day, I'm comfortable. I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. The morphine's kick the pain. My family's around me. And having some of those conversations that are real, but they're hard, and that has helped them to say, okay, maybe I'll try this.
You're not talking about me, are you? I think, I'm kidding. Yeah, thank you. It is difficult, especially what I saw with my father and mother. They didn't want to seek out medical care for two reasons. One, they didn't understand it, and that was hard to get them engaged. The second is they didn't want to spend the money. That was that generation that went through the Depression. And they wanted to save money for their children, for me and my brothers and sisters. And that was very painful because they were actually denying themselves that for us. And we didn't need that, but that was in their psyche. So I really don't know, given the experience that I went through with my mother and father who have since passed, I just wasn't able to get them there as quickly as I could. As my mother became ill, with a couple different issues, then the medical care seemed to get into the system. They understood that and went on from there. But it was a very difficult problem to have, and I sympathize with you. It's very painful to watch them go through that.
I think the thing for me was, again, because I had always been healthy as a horse, and it's like, treats the kids and can't have cancer. And part of it was I was afraid of procedures because I'd never had any illnesses. I'd never been in the hospital. I had a real minor operation on my eye in Nashville, and it was, piece of cake. And So for me, I was afraid of procedures. It's like, oh, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can, you're going to have to knock me out to do that. And I don't think I can do 5 hours of surgery for mastectomy. And everything, I think the medical community has just improved so much. I mean, the technology, that things, and I'm very squeamish. I'm not a good patient. I'm very anxious. I'm very squeamish. If somebody says they're going to throw up, I'm the first one out the door. So for me, it was like, well, yeah, I can do this. That wasn't so bad. I can do this. That wasn't so bad. So I had the fear that I didn't think I could do things like that. And then once I got there, it's like, wow, medical science has really changed. Because I don't know what I had in my head, but I just thought everything was going to be painful and uncomfortable, and I couldn't do it. I'd be panicky. And I wasn't. And I think, again, part of it is the technology has changed so much that things that sound scary turn out to not really be that scary, like the surgeries and things. I had 5 hours of when they did the mastectomy, which was 3 hours, and then 2 hours to start the reconstruction process. And at first I thought, I can't do 5 hours under anesthesia. I'll wake up, I'll be sick, it'll be this, it'll be that, it'll be that. No, I talked to the anesthesiologist, I talked to Dr. Manuelito, came up with a plan, piece of cake. And I know it's not that way for everybody, but that was my fear. I was just afraid of all the procedures and things that I wouldn't be able to do them, so I'll just avoid it. So once I got there, and I think it helps too if you're in a situation where the people around you are very supportive and kind and understand that you're anxious and you don't want to do this. Even now when I get PET scans, because I'm claustrophobic, they give me a tranquilizer that I take an hour before at home, and then I go and I sit at the cancer center and wait. And then even we have this little joke, the man who does my PET scans, because by that time I'm kind of like, kind of woozy anyway, and he said, okay, now we're going to put the magic washcloth over your eyes. And that's my problem. That's why I'm claustrophobic, because when I'm in the PET scan, and if I look up and I can't see the ceiling, I start to get panicky. So we put a handkerchief or a washcloth over my eyes, and it's like piece of cake again. Something so simple, and I would get myself so wound up before the first PET scan, and he worked with me, and it's like, now I go and do PET scans, don't even think about it. So I think that, but I think good personnel who's helpful and calm and will listen to your fears and will talk to you, I think that helps to get you in the door and helps you see, yeah, you can do this, and we can do these tests, and we need to find out what's going on.
I think my doctors gave me a confident choice. They laid out many different opportunities, and then they said, this is the best for your situation. And I think the understanding of that helped me greatly. As soon as I told my family, my brother was in sharing his experience and what his diagnosis was and what his treatment was, and then so that there's a little bit of pressure or stress with that of what are you going to do, and why aren't you doing what I was doing, and so there is that, but I think the confidence that the knowledge of all of the different treatments and what they actually are, and learning that, and then understanding that if you go in early, you get diagnosed early, you have more choices. So I think that's probably one thing that could help, that you're not going to alleviate the cancer if you have it by not going in. You're just going to reduce the number of choices that you have to go to treatment.
And I just want to say, I think with Tim's parents particularly, we saw this, where when they would go to the doctor, they were very timid, and Tim's mom would go to the doctor, and we would ask her how to go, what he'd say, and she'd say, well, he was really busy. I didn't want to bother him with my questions. So it got to the point where his sister would go with the doctor, and it's like, no, she's not doing well. This is what's going on. So I think that's part of it, too, where the elderly people just they feel like they're taking up the doctor's time, and the doctor may be rushed, and so they just, they say, no, I'm doing okay, and leave, and they're really not.
For those of you in the room, we do have some materials outside of the auditorium here that you can take with you. For those of you on the phone, we will make those available through the 3 employee resource groups, Connections websites. But I just want to extend I'm so grateful that I had the chance to meet each of you through this process. And thank you so much for being so willing to share something so personal. And we're glad you're here too. So thank you so much.